Welcome to another edition of the Watchful Citizen, a local access program brought to you by the Lancaster County Democratic Party. I'm your host, Jane Egan. My guest today is Lincoln Public School member Kathy Danek. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jane. I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate you coming on a hot July day. Let's start off by telling our viewers a little bit about your background and how long you've served on the LPS board. And then if you would also tell us what portion of the city that you represent in our community.
I've been on the board since 2001, so I'm in my 17th year. We just completed 16th year. Northeast Lincoln is where I live, and I'm a little parochial. I've lived there my whole life. But really we represent every child in Lincoln, and I think that's the really important. The focus isn't about what school, it's about every student. What brought me to public education is it's the great equalizer. I was raised in a family of 9 kids. I saw a lot of differences in the way kids are educated because in 9, no two have the same background. They're raised the same, but not the same educational needs. And when you see that up close and personal, you know the different needs that are out there. I got to it by volunteering in the high schools as a PTO mom. And then I became the parent advisory president. And then they said, you need to go sit in on these school board meetings because they want to know that Northeast is at those meetings just to make sure that they know what we need in our schools. So I watched the school board meetings for about 12 or 13 years before I ever ran.
Oh my goodness.
So.
Wow. All right. When does your term expire then? You just were reelected?
We were just reelected, so
16?
in 2021.
So it's a 4-year?
It's a 4-year term.
4-year term. Wonderful. And how many people are on the board?
There are 7 of us. They divide the city up. I've actually done some of the restructuring of our district boundaries, and every 10 years through the census we have to reboundary them. And it's between 35 and 40,000. It will change again in 2020, so in 2021 we'll have to do it again. And the irony of when you look at it is you can look at the city and you can see who's going to have to give up a few of the areas that they're used to representing. So.
And is that due to what growth?
The growth of the city, because Lincoln grows with its boundaries for our school district, where we've had that since this school district was put in place in the late 1800s. And what that does for us is it gives us a little stability in what we can offer for students. We always have a growth. I don't ever see us having a huge drop in population. If so, then it's like, wow, because growth is how it's served. Whenever the city annexes, we get those students.
I understand that the annual growth of new students to the system is between 600 to 1,000?
It's actually 800 to 1,000.
800 to 1,000, okay.
And that's been for the last 5 years. So if you put that in place, 5 times 8, that's 40,000 or 4,000 kids. That's 10% growth in our number of students. What makes that growth so valuable or so interesting is that it's also changing in educational needs and diversity. We have more students of ELL, we have more students of color, we have more students with special ed. So when you look at that 800 kids, the makeup of it is probably about half of them are kids of higher needs or diversity. And diversity is really good. We should all celebrate diversity. It's great to have people who don't look and act like all of us.
Right, speak different languages.
And we learn so much from. My dad was the only member of his family born in this country. His parents immigrated here through Ellis Island back in the early 1920s. So my grandmother spoke broken English, and sometimes she said words we weren't supposed to know, because she was my grandmother. My dad would say, never mind. But the reality is I learned a lot from watching the differences in those generations and what we had to learn as second-generation Americans.
The board held public hearings recently on the LPS budget. Can you talk to us a little bit about that budget? Has it been adopted yet? And how and when or will it affect property rates?
Let's start with how we get to the budget.
Okay, great.
One thing I've chaired the finance committee several years on the board. Everybody thinks you come, staff hands you a budget, and you just look at it and you vote it. It really is a culmination of over a year's worth of work, and it actually builds on the previous year's needs, what we have in responsibilities to what the state requires. So the budget is several subcommittees for LPS, and our board members all do duty as subcommittee members. We have a finance committee, we have a planning committee, we have a student learning committee, we have a personnel committee, we have a policy committee, and a technology committee. When you say board members do service, they don't just show up to a meeting every 2 weeks. They're working on subcommittees. Those subcommittees go through the needs of those different parts of the budget throughout the year, and they identify what's needed to make sure we have things in place. Like our technology plan was a big portion of the last 3 years' budget. This is the last year of that plan. So we're funding a one-to-one technology within our high schools and middle schools, and access to one-to-one in the elementary schools. This is the last year of that full implementation plan. But that wasn't done without a whole lot of work in previous years, so you plan for the resources. We have a calendar that starts in January or February. We adopt a calendar. We tell people when we're going to send an outline of the budget. We then have 2 public forums where people can talk about what the outline is. We then have 2 work sessions. We have 2 work sessions within there where board members can give their ideas. As the finance chair, I meet with every single solitary board member and say, okay, what do you think about the budget? Tell me where you think we need to go. Tell me what your wants and needs. But then tell me where you think we might have things we need to scale back, things that aren't working right. How can we make them better? And the really important thing is we look at the budget of how does this budget serve each and every student that comes through our doors.
So it sounds like there's a lot of information exchange and input from all stakeholders. Say a mom and dad could come directly to their board member and say, we think this could, should be in the budget, but you're also getting this information from all these separate committees and from the administration. So it sounds like it's a huge project.
And they also go into each school at the beginning of the year. They have what they call staffing conferences. Mm-hmm. How many students are you going to have next year? How many teachers do we need in this building? What is the makeup of those teachers? Do we need more math, different social studies? Do we need different math? Do we need more remedial math? Do we need more high ability math? Do we need construction math? What do we need? Do we need more oral comm? The other thing is the supports for students, and I think that's a really important part of the budget that we don't really talk about. A student needs more than a classroom teacher, and it doesn't matter whether you are the highest ability learner or the child who struggles the most. They need to have access to a media center and a qualified media operator. They need someone to provide lunch during the day. They need to have access to a school nurse if they don't feel well. They need to have special education if they have other skill sets that need to be taken care of. If their English is falling down, we need ELL programs. We have to educate every child that walks in the door. We also want them to graduate. I had the privilege on Friday of giving graduation diplomas to kids who didn't make it in May. Mm-hmm. So they came and took summer school, and we do make sure summer school is available. In fact, it would have been our 7th largest high school. It was 1,600 plus kids went to summer school to make sure they could graduate, to make sure they could get the courses that they need during the school year. Some kids take summer school simply because they want to take a different class during the year. If you're in music, mm-hmm. and you can't take 4 music classes unless you get your requirements, so they take a couple classes during the summer school. For the kids that graduated on Friday, their faces were full of thrill and excitement. Some were ELL kids, some were special education, some were kids that just fell down in one class and had to pick it up and get it. And as they walked across that stage, there was a note of pride in each one of their faces. Their parents sat in that auditorium at North Star. It was really, really an asset to our community. I remember telling them as part of my welcome to them, if you made a really good decision when you decided to finish high school, and that's only the first of many decisions. We hope that when you leave here, decision-making will guide you, good decision-making. That's what we're educating kids for.
Sounds like the public school system has a lot of choices and a lot of supportive resources to help children or students attain that diploma, and that's got to be good for the community, for the society overall.
They say that it costs more to send a kid, it costs less to send a kid to K-12 education, all 12 years, costs less than to send them to prison for a couple of years. If you just take that, it's about $10,000 in LPS a year. I think the last time I got the number, and it's probably different today, but it was like $65,000 a year for a prisoner, $10,000 for a student. That, right, to me, is a no-brainer. Right. Do we want to be preventative, or do we want to be reactive? And I think Nebraska's always been really good at being preventative, proactive. We want to grow good citizens. We want opportunities for them. We want to address problems as they come up, and we want to address the changing needs of our community as a whole. So we have a lot of choices. You talked about choices.
Yeah, choices, and that kind of leads into another question, or at least a thought that I'd like you to talk about. We do have private schools, and we have homeschooling in our system. Can you kind of talk about the value they provide and what their role is in the public education system overall?
One of the great things is we have a very diverse city, and we have lots of options and opportunities for each and every student in this city. To some parents, that parochial education is really important. To other parents, it might be I can homeschool my child. I never had to answer that question for the homeschooling because I would not have done that with my kids. But the reality is parents get to make those choices. Where I differ with a lot of them is we in Lincoln Public Schools can serve all needs. We provide special education services to all public and private schools in Lincoln Public Schools. So my daughter is a school psychologist. She has 2 schools. One is her public school, and she also serves the Catholic school in her neighborhood. I think that a lot of people don't really know that Lincoln Public Schools provides those special ed services. So we do make it available. If you want to send your kid to a parochial school and they have some special ed needs, Lincoln Public Schools does provide those services there.
Fabulous. Yeah, it's very good. I mentioned the public hearings that were held on the LPS budget. I happened to attend one of them. I thought it was fairly well attended, but I'd like to know how the school board engages parents, other stakeholders in not only the budget process, but all of the issues that are surrounding public education. How do you do the community outreach to let them know when and where these meetings are held and what the issues are that are going to be talked about?
We have a lot of opportunities for people to be involved in their schools. One is in their local school area. I live a few blocks from Huntington Elementary. I rarely get calls to come over there and talk about the budget. I don't think that's what parents really, the budget is not their number one. Is my child going to get a good education? Mm-hmm. So if the parents call us, we go to their PTO meetings, we go to neighborhood meetings. I think I went to the Meadow Lane Neighborhood Association and sat there with Senator Hansen. We also have a lot of different forums throughout the year. So if someone wants a special presentation on the budget, Dr. Standish, she's the head of our finance, she's our finance associate superintendent. She'll go to any group and talk about the budget, answer any and every question, because one of the things you can count on with Lincoln Public Schools is complete transparency. If anyone wants to talk to me, my husband says I have talked forever, kind of noticed that here. I'll talk to them about the budget for as long as they want to talk to them. We might not agree at the end of the conversation, but they'll have every bit of information that they need to make the decision that they're making.
I understand that the school lunch program has increased over the years and that we are serving a larger number of students with that program. Can you talk about that a little bit? Roughly how many people are we, percentage-wise, do we support that way, and where do those revenue sources come from?
Our school lunch program actually is self-sustaining. We get some federal dollars. So it's probably the one self-sustaining program in Lincoln Public Schools. We're very proud of that. Okay. And it's because we have 42% free and reduced lunch. I think it was last year. It seems to be a growing population. Don't quote me on the percentage because I'm always off a little, but I know we're over 40 because that's what identifies a Title I school. And free and reduced lunch is a guideline. It's a paper they have to fill out. The federal government reimburses us. We get food subsidies for that as well. The purpose of a free and reduced lunch is if a child is hungry, they're probably not paying attention in class. And I just think about when my kids used to come home from school and I need a snack, gotta have dinner. Imagine not having dinner the night before or coming to school the next morning. Are you worried about that test, or are you worried that you're gonna get a meal that day? I'm blessed to have 4 kids, 3 of them in education. And I remember the one saying, I really hate when you have long weekends, Mom. And I said, why? And she goes, because my students only get meals at school. They can only count on their meals at school. So if they had a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 3 days without meals instead of just the next day you can come and you can get breakfast and you can get lunch. That meal is a small thing to do to make sure students are performing well in the classroom.
So you're talking about long weekends. What about the summer break? Does that program run through the summer
We're
break?
we're lucky to have a great partnership with the Food Bank of Lincoln. We help raise funds for the backpack program every year. In fact, we have the most generous community in the world, I think, because the backpack program is well supported along this community. I know kids that get backpacks are so grateful, and they stuff them with enough to feed a family of 4. The sad part is, for every child that you give one to, there's a couple over there waiting that hope somebody doesn't take a backpack that week. So I think there's always going to be need. This community always wraps its arms around need, and I'm very proud of Lincoln. It's the greatest place to raise a family.
You're on the providing end to help out and support that program. Can you just give me your personal opinion of why that population is growing? Is it depressed wages? We are an active, full employment community. Why do we have so many people that are going hungry?
As I listen to my friends from Prosper Lincoln, we actually have underemployment. And when I say underemployment, they're working maybe I call them first level jobs, maybe fast food, maybe several part-time jobs. It isn't that we have a lot of people that aren't working. We have people working 2 and 3 jobs, but if you're working 2 and 3 jobs at $8 an hour, I think they say you need $15 an hour just to meet the minimum, and that's really hard for families. I think we have a growing immigration population. Those people want to work. They want jobs. They want what's better for their families. That's why they're here. I also think we have a community that welcomes people, and this community helps pick you up. I think that's a really important piece. It isn't that people are looking for a handout, they're looking for a hand up. And I think that's a really important and great thing about Lincoln. We don't have a lot of let's go back to the jobs.
Okay.
One of the things we learned in the last bond issue is we have a lot of jobs that we don't have people qualified to do, because it used to be you could go work at Goodyear, you could go work at Burlington, you could do that with a high school diploma. Today's machines and the industry is very technologically savvy. You have to be highly qualified in all those technical skills to run those machines. So we responded to that by going to our voters and saying, we need a career academy. We need to bump up our career opportunities for kids. And we met with industry and business and saying, tell us what you need, help us with this. They said, this is the best idea ever. They have been wonderful in the partnership at SCC for the Career Academy, and also through the Zoo School, kids who want to be in the medical field. We've got the Arts and Humanities Focus Program. You have to respond to the needs of your community. It is one of the things that I think if you prepare everybody for college, they can do everything. Not always.
Talk about that Career Academy a little bit more, if you would, please. Tell us what that is, what kind of courses it is, and how that dovetails with high school students, base courses. So I'm thinking, students that's going to Lincoln High and doing, the 3 Rs. How do they work in their courses at the Career Academy, and where is that located?
Career Academy is located in a partnership. We built a building attached to a Southeast Community College on 84th and O. What students do is they take their freshman and sophomore years complete at their home high school. Hopefully they're getting their core curriculum there at that time. Then they go for 2 classes a day at the Career Academy in their junior year. One's the morning. I think the juniors are the morning and the seniors take the afternoon classes. So there's 2 classes in the morning. Those are your junior level classes. 2 in the afternoon. Those are your senior level classes. And what they've done with those is they've divided them into pathways. So students can actually get social studies and industry credit in those pathways. There's a health pathway, there's a technology pathway, there's a building and construction pathway. They have another name for it, but it's building and construction. And if you think about it, they'll do some math courses in there. I always said, I never understood why we thought math with construction. I just did a renovation on my house. I was so grateful that when they said it had to be within a 32nd of an inch that they hit it, because I wanted that roof to stand. And math is really important in a lot of things. So we try to integrate those programs together. We want students to leave high school prepared to go to work or go to post-secondary education. All of these jobs that I'm talking about, the industry jobs, the like Lincoln Industries and Bison, there's all of these companies need highly qualified people. And if we can't provide them, they're going to go to other places to get them. We also want our kids to stay here in Lincoln. You know,
Right.
I'm a mom, I'm a grandma. I don't want my kids moving clear across the country. Even if they do, I'll support them. But
Right.
the reality is we want our families to stay here and keep our community vibrant. And Lincoln is a beautiful place to raise a family.
So if a high school student wants to participate in that program, say, and they're going to Southwest, how do they get all the way across town?
We
to
provide
East?
transportation.
You do?
So,
Okay.
and we do routes. They move around the city. I think we have 5 routes. 6
These
routes.
bus routes?
Bus
or-
routes.
Okay.
They're bus routes.
All right.
So we take the kids in. So that's what you do. You take them in the morning. Kids only get 2 classes, so there's an hour that they lose in the middle of the day. So that's, again, our summer school kids. We're giving those options so they can have things in their regular high school or at their regular, for their regular education and still be in the Career Academy.
Okay, all right, wonderful. Sounds like a wonderful program.
It is a great program, and one of the things we added was we also added the transportation to the other focus programs. So if someone wants to be in the science focus program that's at the Lincoln Zoo, we're going to provide we provide transportation there as well as to the arts and humanities program.
And that is all part of the budget?
That's all part of the budget.
All right, very good, okay. Another issue, aside from the budget, the LPS board is going to take a school rankings issue up at the July 25th meeting. It was in the paper today. Can you kind of explain to me a little bit about what school rankings are, what their value is, or what the reasons are for keeping or eliminating school rankings?
I think school rankings are a recognition of how the students performed over 4 years in high school. Where I think it gets skewed is the competitive nature of, I had a 4.9, 4.8, 3.7, and all of a sudden it's like, what do you mean? I have 40 kids that are 4.0, and now I got to take them out to the 100th. They all finished high school with perfect scores, but this one took diff classes, or weighted classes we call them. That's on a 5-0 scale. So a 1 to 5, a 5 is an A in a diff class. A 4 is an A in a regular class. So then you have kids fighting to take all of the differentiated classes and maybe not taking those experiences that give them real value in the workplace. They might not take a diverse curriculum, which they're going to have to take in college because liberal arts colleges want you to take more than your focus. That's very different than what they do in a lot of our foreign countries. So that's one of the big discussions. What they're talking about doing is eliminating that number of I was first, second, or third and saying you graduated with highest distinction, high distinction. Kind of like I think college is magna cum laude, summa cum laude, with distinction, with high distinction. It's honoring the work that the kids did. And every kid should be honored, not just 1 or 2.
And usually the highest ranking is rewarded by being chosen valedictorian of their graduating class, and then they get up and make a speech.
Well, they actually don't do that in LPS. It's
They
a little
don't
more
do that?
competitive for the
Oh.
speeches. The students
Oh.
actually compete to get the speeches for their high school
Oh,
classes.
so that's aside from their GPA.
Correct.
ranking then.
So
Oh, that's awesome.
I think one of the best ones this year was we had a student give what he moved here from Texas and said in Texas he was going to be, when he was in 8th grade, his future was, I'm either going to be 6 feet under or in jail. And he came here and graduated with honors at Lincoln North Star High School. It was a very moving speech. He said somebody cared about him. They reached out and said, your education's important, but more important, you are valuable to this community. And I looked at him at graduation. I heard this speech twice. I heard it at North Star's graduation and then again in front of the board. I told him he honored all of us by sharing his story. I think we forget about every bit in our budget and in our numbers is numbers, but it's also faces. And if you put a face on every single dollar that's spent, if you put a face of what that value of that education is, it makes the budget a very personal experience.
Just have a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers? Is there something upcoming that you'd like to talk
Well,
about?
we're very excited about opening a new middle school this year. The Moore Middle School is opening in South Lincoln. It was named after Dr. Marilyn Moore, who spent her entire career in Lincoln Public, most of her career in Lincoln Public Schools. She was our associate superintendent for curriculum and instruction. She was so excited to see the school. cool thing about that school, it's going to have a little STEM focus in it. So when I say STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And Dr. Gary Zappala is the new principal there. They're going to have an open house. Everybody is really excited about the opening of the new school.
And is that opening this fall for this term?
It is
or-
opening this fall. It opens
Okay.
with all our other schools.
All right.
So very exciting
Next
event.
month.
People should, it'll be in August. Everybody should be really excited. And it's also time to say thank you to our voters. They've always supported us. We've been very blessed to have a community that understands education and the value of education. Not just the cost, but the value.
Where is that school located again?
It is
Or what part of the city?
It is in far southeast Lincoln. I want to say
southeast.
Yankee Hill and
Okay.
about 90th,
Okay.
that area.
And that will accommodate how many students?
It's, our middle schools generally go about 1,200 kids. We build them for
Really?
1,000, but right now I think Scott Middle School is over 1,100, and we even opening a new school. They're going to be at that. We're just growing.
Wow. Well, it sounds like our school system is in good hands.
Thank you.
And that we're moving along. Would you like to give your website information
Sure.
to our viewers so that they know how to contact you?
If they want to contact us, go to lincolnpublicschools.org. It's lps.org, and to contact us, go under Board of Education, and you can find my name. I'm District 1, so I usually get the first phone call because
Okay, 'cause
I'm
you're
because my
listed
name
first.
shows first. Sometimes we even get them all over the state. So, and they
right.
could look for Kathy.Danek@lps.org.
All right, very good. And I understand that all of the board members are open to speaking with any constituent that comes to you.
And we'll do it in the grocery store, on the phone, walking
Okay.
down the neighborhood. If you find us, we'll talk to you.
All right, very personal. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you
and
so
talking
much.
with me today and with our viewers. I'm sure that I've certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers have too. It was a valuable interview. I appreciate your service to this community
Thank
for
you
these
so
many,
much.
many years and doing such a fabulous job. Our show airs on Tuesdays at 10:30 p.m., Wednesdays at 6 p.m., and Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. on the Spectrum cable channel. For more information about our program, The Watchful Citizen, if you'd like to be a guest on our program, contact the Lancaster County Democratic Office. Our information will appear on the screen at the close of the program. So I thank you for watching another edition of The Watchful Citizen, and I thank LPS Board Member Kathy Danek for being our guest today.
Thank you so much. It was
All right.
wonderful to be here.
All right, stay cool.